It's like the opening scene of a great film when you walk up to the main gate at Disneyland and there's the station, and while you're standing there going through the turnstile, all of a sudden here comes the train into view, pulling into the station, and it's been a favorite memory all those years.
Well, I started with Walt Disney in 1954. Interestingly enough, the Combine car that we're celebrating here today was part of the original passenger car consist. Now remember, these are historic vehicles. I was at Walt Disney Studios in 1954 when those vehicles were being built. So it's a thrill to be here today, actually ride the Combine car as part of that original train set, having seen them built, knowing the lives that they've had, and these lives have now been rejoined up here today on this really, really special event.
Retlaw was a separate company from Disneyland, and the trains were actually owned by Retlaw, which was Walter spelled backwards. And Walt Disney himself owned the trains separate from the park. And it was a separate paycheck, they were separate employees, and the trains were his.
Well, it's a very special thing, and it's starting it with a group of 12 people. They'll actually take the first ride this morning, and again, nobody's been aboard for a ride since 1974. So you know, here we are all these years later, an opportunity that many people never thought would happen, and the fact that they'll be able to do that today and be the first to do it again in many years is very special for them.
Leave the hotel if you want.
Well, that's it, but we could, but we came back.
I'd love to see them. Well, bringing all these cars back together again, you know, they're going to get hooked up here after lunch. So the whole consist of the 4 coaches in the Combine will be together again. But it's just, you know, it's amazing because this car looks brand new. And it's just like you've gone back in time almost.
It isn't hard to imagine the long string of yellow cars rolling through the comparatively open and spacious Disneyland of the 1950s, as they carried thousands of wide-eyed children on their very first train ride. It was a day they would never forget.
When Walt designed and built Disneyland, he wanted to have an authentic railroad, so he had a passenger train and a freight train. And this particular car was said to be his favorite car because when he was a boy, he had actually worked on the railroad. He sold candy and newspapers, and he would have stored his supply in a combination car like this. This car is half passenger, half baggage. And so this would have been the car he would have rode in with the crew, talked to the crew. I've heard stories that he was even allowed to go up into the engine with the engineers and operate the equipment. And so this was Walt's favorite car. It's one of those unique artifacts that Walt actually touched. He would have walked through here. He approved the design of the stencils. I'm sure the paint scheme, everything was, in those days, was approved by Walt. And so this car is what Walt wanted.
Well, for me, this was closing the loop, because when I was a 12-year-old at Walt's knee, learning about trains from Walt,
and my father, who was the first Disney Imagineer, Roger Brogy, I was at the park a month before it opened, and Walt took me on a ride in his cab around the park. And then on opening day, I got to ride in the Combine car, the opening day of Disneyland, July 17th, 1955, and I had turned 13. So I have not ridden in the Combine car since that day. So today closed that loop. So it's like revisiting your own childhood. But the beauty of it is, with railroading, your childhood continues for a lifetime.
Experience this historic occasion for yourself. Hear the stories, learn the history, ride in the cab, and ride in the Combine itself. Go to grandscales.com or call us at 530-527-0141.